I'll be reading Jeremiah 1:4-10 and Psalm 71, 1-6. And they're going to be in the New International Version. Call of Jeremiah. The word of the Lord came to me saying, Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as the prophet of the nations. Alas, sovereign Lord, I said, I do not know how to speak. I'm too young. But the Lord said to me, Do not say I'm too young. You must go to everyone and I send to you, and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you, and I will rescue you, declares the Lord. The Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth and said to me, I have put my words in your mouth. See, today appoint you over the nations and kingdoms to uproot and tear down, to destroy and overthrow, to build and to plant. Psalm 71. In you, Lord, I have taken refuge. Let me never be put to shame. In your righteousness, rescue me and deliver me. Turn your ear and save me. Be my rock of refuge to which I can always go. Give the command to save me, for you are my rock and my fortress. Deliver me, my God, from the hand of the wicked, from the grasp of those who are evil and cruel. For you have been my hope, sovereign Lord. My confidence since my youth. From birth I have relied on you. You brought me forth from my mother's womb. I will ever praise you.
More than in recent history, at least, I've been really, really interested in this Olympic Games this year. I have watched way more TV than I normally do over the last couple of weeks. And when I go to the gym, I find the TV when I'm on the treadmill that has the Olympics events on. So I don't know why this happened to me, but I've been so inspired by so much of the Olympics this year. And so interesting to see someone give all they have to a sport that they care so much about, that they have so much passion for. And it's also uplifting to see how much pride people take in representing their country. You get the idea that they're not really doing it completely for themselves, that they're really proud to wear their country on their uniform as they compete. And every homeland is equally valued and respected and honored, or at least that's the spirit of the Olympics. Flags of all nations waving around the venues. But one group of athletes that are there this year aren't competing under their country's flags, but have competed instead under the Olympic flag. That's happened before. You might remember when the wall fell down in the late 80s. The next time the Olympics rolled around, they had a team of countries that didn't really quite have their names or identities yet, from Russia and some other Eastern European countries that competed under the Olympic flag. But this time, the group that's competing under the Olympic flag is a refugee team. They didn't actually win a place they didn't win any gold, silver, or bronze medals in their individual events, but they are the really true champions of this Olympic Games in many ways. The refugee Olympic team is made up of athletes who were forced to flee their countries due to war and violence. Some of them fled their countries years ago, and some of them very recently. There's 10 of them from Syria, from South Sudan, and from the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC. Their stories are vastly different. They range in age from teenager to mid-30s, and they're truly representative of the best that the world has to offer. So thank goodness somebody at the planning stages of the Olympic Games, someone had the wisdom to allow this to happen, to put this group of athletes on the table to compete. Someone decided that it was important to recognize this refugee population that we have all over the world and add them to the Games. And the Olympic Committee then collaborated with the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, and they had tryouts and formed this team tryouts in various locations and gave these worthy athletes a chance to compete. As Olivia read for us in Jeremiah 1, the words, "See, today I appoint you over nations and over kingdoms to pick up, to pluck up and to pull down, to build and to plant." Planting in hope and promise is what happens in these sorts of situations when people realize the potential of an underserved population. Planting hope and promise in the hearts and minds of struggling refugees and giving them a chance to shine like everybody else in the world that's not under siege has been a definite building and planting of goodwill, not just for this particular group of athletes who got the opportunity, but for those who did the tryout and didn't make the team but had the opportunity, and actually for all of us to have the opportunity to see them and learn from their stories. These athletes endured struggle and loss and heartache that many of us can never even imagine. They have saved lives besides their own, like the swimmer who got out of a boat and swam it to shore, saving 20 people with her sister. They've had to start all over, not only in another city, but in another country, many times having to learn a new language that they're unfamiliar with. To find the strength and fortitude to also become Olympians is really a remarkable feat. Jeremiah 1 also says, "You shall go to all to whom I send you." This is after a reluctant Jeremiah doubts his ability to be the prophet that God expects him to be. Jeremiah, a youth, is doubting. This passage is full of doubts that Jeremiah has. He's not without curious confusion over why he would be appointed a prophet. And yet he really feels a call from God. He hears God calling him and telling him that he was in fact called to this moment before he was even born. And God will not let Jeremiah doubt himself just because he's young. God makes it clear to him that no perceived limitation matters when you do what God is calling you to do. Truly, the Olympics gave these particular athletes a chance to be prophetic even in their own sports, to show the world that no matter what limitations someone might face, that you can achieve all that God calls you to be with effort, work, hope, courage, promise, and some people around that care. And it's not even about who ends up on the medal stand at the end of the event. It's about the courage shown in the journey. The psalmist says in Psalm 71, "In you, O Lord, I take refuge. Let me never be put to shame. In your righteousness, deliver me and rescue me. Incline your ear to me and save me." A reminder that no matter what circumstances life might throw our way, we always will have refuge in God. That God will be with us in the trials and the tribulations of our life. The psalmist reminds us that we can call on God to be our rock, our fortress, our salvation. God can be the one who rescues us from the unjust and cruel world, but also with the understanding that we must call on God and do our part. We must hope. We must believe. We must trust that from the moment of our birth, we have been called to be God's creators of this promised land. Not just people who arrive there one day, but to be part of the journey, the work, the process, the heartache, the building that creates a promised land. The refugees of the Olympic team remind us that our inner strength, which comes from God, can indeed propel us to heights that we never imagined possible. And it doesn't have to end, as I said before, in gold on a podium for us to receive our highest reward. Simone Biles, the gold medalist all-around winner for Team USA in women's gymnastics, said in an interview that she was lucky because she had parents who could afford to provide lessons for her and give her all she needed to succeed. Taking an awareness that many around do not have the opportunities that she's had. And in the case of the refugees, whatever resources they may have once had was taken away from them in the cruelty of war and the destruction of their homelands. Rose, who was one of the runners in the video you saw, said she ran her race at the tryouts for the Olympic team without shoes. Without shoes, she ran and got on an Olympic team. God gives us all we need within ourselves to succeed. We don't need shoes to get in the Olympics, according to Rose. For you, O Lord, are my hope, my trust. From my youth, I continuously praise you, O God. God takes the opportunity to use others to inspire all of us to greatness. Sometimes God does that with us. But we have to seize the opportunity and take it and make the most of it. God gives us opportunities all the time that we decide to toss aside and not grab onto and reach for our greatness. Sometimes we do. And that's what we've seen in this group of athletes this season. This season, the refugees that competed in the Summer Games in Rio have been those prophets for us that have implored us to remember it's not what we seem to have, but what God enables us to have that allows us to make a difference. Not just in our own lives, but in the lives of everyone, people we will never even meet. That is the instruction we get from Jeremiah, from the psalm reading today, and also from these athletes. That we can make a difference in the lives of everyone we meet. But we have to grab onto the potential that God is always giving us and not let it go and not throw it away and not toss it aside. See, today I appoint you over nations and over kingdoms to build and to plant. Thanks be to God. Amen.